Jack Turner's morning on his Montana farm was interrupted by an unexpected spectacle. The sky, usually clear and expansive, was overshadowed by a massive, dark silhouette descending with a threatening hum. Jack, a retired military officer who had found solace in the quiet of rural life, squinted against the morning sun, trying to comprehend the sight of an alien spacecraft landing on his property. "Damn," he muttered to himself, quickly heading towards his barn to grab some old gear. He hadn't expected to need his tactical expertise on the farm, but old habits die hard. As Jack equipped himself, his old friend and neighbor Tom Briggs drove up in a cloud of dust, his truck screeching to a halt. "Jack, you seeing this?" Tom called out, jumping out with his own rifle in hand. "Yep, got eyes, don't I?" Jack replied, checking his radio was still functional. "We need a plan. This isn't a drill." Tom nodded, his face set in a grim line. "Let's alert the others. If those things come off that ship, we'll need all the help we can get." Together, they coordinated through their radios, rallying the scattered community members. Within an hour, a dozen locals had gathered at Jack's farm, each person carrying whatever weapon they could scrounge up. "What's the plan, Jack?" asked Maria Gonzalez, who owned the diner in town. Her voice was steady despite the tension. "We hold our ground," Jack stated firmly. "We know this land better than they do. We use that to our advantage." The group nodded, spreading out to take positions that offered a clear view of the alien ship. The craft was unlike anything they had seen, sleek and ominous, with a ramp that descended to the earth. The Virexians emerged, their towering forms striking against the backdrop of the Montana plains. Their scales shimmered under the sun, and their eyes scanned the surroundings with calculated interest. "We don't fire unless they make a move," Jack instructed, watching as the aliens began setting up some sort of perimeter. "Keep it tight and stay hidden." The standoff continued for hours, tension mounting as the Virexians moved with purpose, seemingly unaware of the human resistance forming just beyond their immediate sight. Jack communicated quietly with his team, ensuring everyone was alert and ready. Suddenly, a younger member of the group, Danny, whispered urgently into the radio, "They're moving towards the east field." Jack peered through his binoculars, confirming Danny's report. "Looks like they're exploring. Could be trying to secure resources or territory." "Or they're looking for us," Tom added, his grip tightening on his rifle. As the aliens advanced, their movements hindered by the gravity they were unaccustomed to, Jack saw an opportunity. "Tom, Maria, flank them on the right. Danny, you and the others come with me from the left. We box them in." The group moved quickly and quietly, using the rolling hills and dense foliage for cover. As they neared, Jack signaled for everyone to hold their position. The Virexians, sensing the encroachment, paused, their heads tilting in unison, as if listening. It was then that Jack stepped out from his cover, rifle raised. "We don't want to fight," he called out, his voice carrying across the open field. "But we will defend our home." The leader of the Virexian group, a towering figure with a decorated chest plate, responded in a surprisingly clear English. "Your resistance is noted, but futile. We seek only what is necessary for our survival." Jack kept his rifle trained on the leader. "So do we." A tense silence fell, broken only by the gentle rustle of the wind through the grass. It was a standoff, with each side measuring the other, searching for signs of weakness. Finally, the Virexian leader nodded slightly. "We will withdraw, for now." As the aliens retreated back to their ship, Jack didn't lower his rifle until the last of them had disappeared inside. He turned to his group, faces strained but relieved. "They'll be back," he said, "and we need to be ready. Let's prepare for a long fight." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll follow your lead, Jack. You got us through this one." Jack nodded, watching as the alien ship lifted off the ground and hovered ominously. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Let's get to work." The group dispersed to prepare for what was to come, each person resolved to protect their home, their community, and their planet. Jack stayed behind for a moment longer, his eyes never leaving the alien ship as it ascended into the sky. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. After the initial encounter with the Virexians at Jack Turner's farm, the town of Red Hill quickly became a focal point of resistance. The aliens had retreated temporarily, but everyone knew they would be back, and in greater force. Jack met with the makeshift council in Maria's diner, which had turned into an impromptu command center. Maps of the town and surrounding areas were spread out on the tables, dotted with various markers. "We need to fortify," Jack stated, tracing a line along the main road leading into town. Set up checkpoints here, here, and here. We can't let them walk in unchallenged. Tom Briggs, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. We've got a good supply of tools and raw materials from the old mill. We can start with barricades and some basic traps. Maria added, I've been in touch with other towns. They're scared, Jack. They're looking to us to take the lead here. Jack nodded, his expression grim. Then we won't let them down. We'll show them how to stand up to these invaders. As they planned, the community rallied. People from all walks of life came together, bringing their skills and determination to the cause. Mechanics, farmers, teachers, and even teenagers worked side by side, constructing defenses and preparing for what was to come. Meanwhile, Danny, the youngest of Jack's recruits, had taken a small team to scout the aliens' movements. Hiding in the brush, they watched as the Virexians set up their base a few miles from town. They're building something big, Danny reported over the radio, his voice hushed. Looks like they're planning to stay a while. Jack's reply was terse. Keep an eye on them. We need to know if they move out. Back in town, the defenses slowly took shape. Barricades made of reinforced steel and wood lined the main roads, and lookout posts were established in tall buildings and trees. The townsfolk trained under Jack and Tom's guidance, learning basic combat tactics and how to use the firearms and improvised weapons they had stockpiled. As night fell, a tense calm settled over Red Hill. Families gathered in their homes, sharing quiet meals and tight embraces. In Maria's diner, the lights burned late into the night as Jack and his council continued their planning. Suddenly, the crackle of the radio broke the stillness. Jack, you there? They're moving, heading straight for us. Danny's voice came through, urgent and strained. Jack grabbed his rifle, his heart pounding. Everyone to positions. This is not a drill. The town sprung to action, the recent training kicking in as people took their places. Jack stationed himself at the main road, where the first line of defense was set up. Beside him, Tom loaded his shotgun, his face set in a determined scowl. They picked a hell of a time, Tom muttered. Jack didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the dark road ahead. The first signs of the Virexians appeared as shadows against the moonlit horizon. The alien soldiers advanced in formation, their movements hindered by the gravity, but their intentions clear. As they reached the first checkpoint, Jack shouted, Hold fire! He waited until the aliens were in range. Now! The night erupted into chaos as gunfire and shouts filled the air. The Virexians, caught off guard by the fierce resistance, struggled to advance under the relentless barrage. The battle raged through the night. Explosions from improvised mines shook the ground, and the air was thick with smoke and the sharp smell of gunpowder. The Virexians were relentless, but the people of Red Hill stood their ground, driven by a desperate determination to protect their home. As dawn approached, the gunfire dwindled, and an eerie silence took over. Jack and Tom cautiously approached the checkpoint, their weapons ready. The ground was littered with debris and alien bodies, a testament to the town's fierce defense. They're pulling back, Tom observed, looking out towards the retreating figures. Jack nodded, feeling a mix of relief and foreboding. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. We need to be ready to push them back, every time. The people of Red Hill, though exhausted, were invigorated by their victory. They had faced the alien invaders and held their own. As they prepared for the next assault, their resolve only strengthened. This small Montana town had become a beacon, a sign that humanity would not yield so easily. After successfully repelling the initial Virexian assault, Jack Turner knew that Red Hill had only won a brief respite. He gathered his core team early the next morning at Maria's diner, which had become the unofficial headquarters for their resistance. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the dusty street. We did well last night, but it was just a test. They were probing our defenses. Jack began, his voice steady and commanding. We need to switch tactics. We can't just sit and wait for them to come at us again. Tom Briggs, leaning against the counter with arms crossed, nodded in agreement. We need to hit them where it hurts. Take the fight to them before they can regroup. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Guerrilla tactics, hit and run. We strike their supply lines, communication points, and then vanish before they can catch their breath, Jack explained, marking potential targets on the map spread out on the table. Maria Gonzalez, wiping her hands on her apron, looked concerned. It's risky. You're talking about moving into their territory. It is risky, Jack conceded, locking eyes with each of his team members. But sitting here waiting for the next attack is riskier. We need to keep them off balance, make them second-guess their strategy. Danny, who had proved his worth as a scout, spoke up. I can lead a team to recon their main base. We find out exactly where to hit them. Jack nodded approvingly. Good man. Take Mike and Laura with you. You'll move out at 0400. Stay out of sight, and radio in as soon as you have something. As Danny and his team prepared for the reconnaissance mission, Jack organized the rest of the group into small, mobile units. Each was tasked with specific targets that would disrupt the alien operations, but were instructed to avoid direct confrontation unless absolutely necessary. By nightfall, Danny's team had returned with crucial intel. They'd located a Virexian supply depot, lightly guarded and full of resources. That's our first target, Jack decided after reviewing the report. Tom, you lead the assault. Hit them fast and hard, then melt away into the forest. Use the ravines for cover on your exfil. Tom's team mobilized under the cover of darkness, driving old, muffled trucks to the edge of the forest nearest the supply depot. With the precision of a well-oiled machine, they infiltrated the depot, planting charges and seizing what supplies they could carry. The explosion that tore through the night was a fiery declaration of human defiance. Tom's team made their escape through the pre-scouted ravines, just as Jack had instructed. The Virexians, caught by surprise, scrambled jets that roared ineffectively overhead, their searchlights sweeping the ground below. Back at the diner, Jack and Maria listened to the crackling radio, waiting for Tom's signal. Finally, it came through. Eagle has landed. We're clear. Cheers broke out among those gathered, and even Jack allowed himself a rare smile. This is how we win, by staying one step ahead. Encouraged by their success, Jack planned more raids. Each strike eroded the alien presence and gathered more resources for the human fighters. The strategy also boosted the morale of Red Hill and the surrounding communities, inspiring more volunteers to join the resistance. As weeks turned into months, Jack's guerrilla tactics began to draw attention. Stories of their successes spread, painting Jack as a cunning leader waging a David versus Goliath battle against the alien invaders. However, with increased notoriety came increased risk. The Virexians grew more cautious, their patrols more frequent and more heavily armed. Jack knew they would need to adapt their tactics continually to stay ahead. One evening, as the team gathered to plan their next move, Jack laid out a new strategy focusing on technological sabotage. If we can hack their communication lines, we can sow confusion, maybe even send them false orders. Maria, ever the practical one, pointed out the need for expert help. We've got a couple of folks from the tech company in Helena. They've been wanting to help. Maybe it's time we take them up on that. Jack agreed. Bring them in. Let's see if we can turn the tables even more. With each successful operation, the resistance grew bolder. Red Hill had become a symbol of human ingenuity and courage, a small town standing tall against a formidable foe. But Jack remained cautious, knowing that each victory brought them closer to a larger, more desperate response from the Virexians. The war was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. As the guerrilla war intensified, the small town of Red Hill became a symbol of human tenacity. Under Jack Turner's leadership, the resistance had successfully executed several high-impact strikes against the Virexian invaders. However, Jack knew that their successes would only provoke a stronger retaliation. In Maria's diner, now covered with maps and digital screens showing real-time satellite imagery, Jack met with his inner circle. The atmosphere was charged. Everyone understood that the next few days could determine the course of their struggle. Reports are coming in. The Virexians are massing forces near the river bend. Looks like they're planning a major push, Tom Briggs announced, pointing at a satellite image where alien activity buzzed. Jack's eyes narrowed. They're getting desperate. It means our tactics are working, but we can't underestimate them. We need a solid plan to counter this offensive. Maria Gonzalez, always practical, added, We've gathered a lot of their tech from the raids. Can we use it against them? Jack turned to Sarah, their tech specialist from Helena, who had been working tirelessly to reverse engineer Virexian technology. Sarah, what do you have for us? We've managed to adapt some of their shield technology, Sarah explained, her face lit by the glow of a laptop screen. We can create a temporary barrier. It won't hold forever, but it should give us enough time to strike back during their assault. Jack considered this. We set up the barrier at the river bend. Tom, you and your team will flank them from the east with whatever you can carry. Danny, I need you and your group ready to sabotage their supply lines as soon as we have them engaged. The group nodded, understanding their roles without question. The resistance had become a well-oiled machine, with every member ready to play their part in the intricate dance of guerrilla warfare. The day of the Virexian assault dawned clear and cold. Jack and his fighters took their positions, blending into the landscape with mud-caked faces and leafy camouflage. As the alien forces began their advance, Sarah activated the adapted shields. A shimmering barrier sprung up along the river bend, startling the advancing Virexians and halting their progress. "This is it. Hold steady," Jack whispered into his radio, watching through binoculars as confusion spread through the alien ranks. At his command, Tom's team unleashed a barrage of fire from the east, utilizing captured Virexian weapons that spat out bursts of plasma. Caught off guard and unable to advance through the unexpected barrier, the Virexian forces scrambled to organize a defense. But they were too slow. From the north, Danny's team hit their supply lines, detonating explosives that sent shockwaves through the alien troops. The battle raged fiercely, with the tide turning visibly in favor of the humans. Jack's strategy of using the Virexians' technology against them proved devastatingly effective. As the shield began to flicker and fade, the human forces pressed their advantage, driving the invaders back step by step. By the time the sun set, the river bend was littered with debris from the alien tech, and the Virexians were in full retreat. The resistance fighters, though exhausted, felt a surge of victory. Back at the command center, Jack and his team assessed the day's outcomes. "They didn't expect us to use their own tech. It gave us the edge we needed," Jack said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice despite the fatigue that lined his face. Tom, cleaning his rifle, looked up with a grin. "They'll think twice before trying another frontal assault." "But they will come back," Maria added, always cautious. "And they'll come with something we might not expect." Jack nodded solemnly. "Then we'll be ready for them. We adapt, we evolve, and we overcome. That's how we're going to win this war." The victory at the river bend became a turning point in the war against the Virexians. It not only boosted the morale of the resistance, but also demonstrated the effectiveness of using alien technology in combat. As news of the battle spread, more volunteers joined the ranks, eager to defend their planet. Jack knew the war was far from over, but that day's victory had given humanity a crucial advantage, and more importantly, hope. The fight would continue, but now with a renewed belief in their ability to defeat the invaders. In the weeks following the victory at the river bend, the resistance under Jack Turner's leadership expanded significantly. More volunteers from surrounding areas joined, bringing with them a renewed spirit and additional resources. Red Hill was buzzing with activity, and the resistance was gaining momentum. Jack knew that to maintain this momentum, they needed a significant win that could potentially turn the tide of the war. The target was New Hope, a small city that had been under Virexian control since the early days of the invasion. Jack convened a strategy meeting in the newly established war room, a large tent filled with maps, communication equipment, and bustling resistance members. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone understood the stakes were high. "New Hope is not just a strategic location, it's a symbol," Jack started, his voice echoing slightly in the tent. "If we can liberate it, it'll send a message to everyone that the Virexians can be beaten." Tom Briggs leaned over the map, pointing at various entry points into the city. "The Virexians have fortified the main roads, but there are old sewer systems here and here that aren't heavily guarded. We could use them for a surprise attack." Sarah, the tech specialist, chimed in. "I've been working on disrupting their communication networks. If I can jam their signals during the attack, it would cause chaos in their ranks." Jack nodded approvingly. "Tom, you lead the main force through the sewers. Sarah, make sure we have comms jamming in place when we move. Danny, I want you and your team to create diversions around the perimeter. Draw them out where we want them." The plan was set, and the next 48 hours were a blur of preparations. Weapons were checked and rechecked, supplies were distributed, and every participant was given their role. The night before the operation, Jack addressed the assembled fighters, his voice firm and inspiring. "Tomorrow we fight not just for New Hope, but for the future of our planet. We fight for our families, our friends, and our fallen comrades. Let's bring New Hope back to where it belongs, in the hands of the free." As dawn broke, the resistance moved silently through the sewers towards New Hope. The city, once vibrant and bustling, now stood quiet under the oppressive control of the Virexians. Jack's heart ached to see it so, but his resolve hardened. Today, they would fight to bring it back to life. Tom's team emerged from the sewers into the heart of the city, catching the alien forces off guard. Explosions rocked the outer edges of New Hope as Danny's team executed their diversion tactics flawlessly. Amidst the chaos, Sarah's tech jammed the Virexian communications, leaving them disorganized and vulnerable. The battle was fierce, with intense street-to-street fighting. Jack led a group towards the city center, where the Virexians had their command post. Every corner they turned, every building they cleared brought them closer to their goal. The resistance fighters moved with precision, their spirits buoyed by the initial success of their surprise attack. As they approached the command post, a Virexian reinforcement squad tried to cut them off. Jack and his team were pinned down, the air thick with gunfire and the sharp smell of burnt metal. It was a desperate moment, but the resolve of the human fighters never wavered. "Push forward," Jack yelled over the din of battle. "For New Hope." With a renewed burst of energy, the resistance fighters surged forward, breaking through the Virexian line and storming the command post. The fighting was brutal, but the momentum was with the humans. When the last of the Virexian defenders fell, Jack planted the human flag atop the command post, signaling the liberation of New Hope. Cheers erupted from the resistance fighters, spreading quickly throughout the city as the local population began to emerge from hiding, their faces marked with tears and smiles. The Battle of New Hope was not just a victory, it was a turning point. The city's liberation breathed new life into the global resistance. People everywhere were bolstered by the news that a significant city had been reclaimed, igniting hope and determination across the human settlements. As the dust settled, Jack stood amidst the ruins of the command post, his face weary but his eyes bright. "This is just the beginning," he murmured to himself, knowing that each victory brought them closer to reclaiming their world. The liberation of New Hope marked a pivotal moment in humanity's resistance against the Virexian occupation. As the news spread, communities worldwide were emboldened, rallying to the cause with renewed vigor. The victory also brought a significant benefit: captured alien technology that provided the human forces with unprecedented opportunities for technological advancement. In a makeshift laboratory set up in a secure sector of New Hope, Jack Turner and his team worked closely with a group of scientists and engineers, including Sarah, who had become pivotal in understanding and adapting Virexian technology for human use. Their latest project was ambitious and potentially game-changing. They aimed to enhance Earth's gravitational field locally as a defensive measure. "We've been analyzing the tech we captured," Sarah explained during one of the strategy meetings. "The Virexians use a form of gravitational modulation to ease their movements on Earth. We think we can reverse engineer this to increase gravity in targeted areas during battles. It could incapacitate them, slow them down significantly." Jack, always keen on using every possible advantage, immediately saw the potential. "Do it. Develop a prototype. If we can deploy this during engagements, we could neutralize their ground forces without firing a shot." The project moved forward with urgency. The prototype, dubbed the Gravity Well, was designed as a deployable unit that could be activated remotely, creating a localized field of increased gravity. The first field tests were promising, but the real test came sooner than expected. A Virexian battalion was spotted advancing towards a newly liberated settlement close to New Hope. Rather than risk a direct assault, Jack decided it was the perfect opportunity to test the Gravity Well. He deployed several units along the anticipated route of the Virexian advance. Hiding in ambush, Jack and his team waited as the alien forces entered the range of the Gravity Wells. Sarah remotely activated the devices. Almost instantly, the advancing Virexians began to struggle, their movements becoming sluggish as the gravity around them intensified. "It's working," Jack whispered, watching through binoculars. The Virexians were effectively immobilized, their strength no match for the crushing force of the amplified gravitational field. Using the opportunity, the human forces launched a surprise attack. The Virexians, already disoriented and incapacitated by the gravity increase, were quickly overwhelmed. The battle was a resounding success, with minimal human casualties and significant alien losses. The victory proved the effectiveness of the Gravity Well, and soon Jack ordered mass production of the device. Resistance cells across the globe were equipped with this new weapon, significantly leveling the playing field in battles against the Virexians. Buoyed by their success, Jack's team continued to innovate. Sarah and her team of engineers developed other technologies, including energy shields and enhanced weaponry, further enhancing the human soldiers' capabilities. As they prepared for more extensive operations, Jack focused on the broader strategy. This war will be won not just by force, but by outsmarting them at every turn. he declared during a briefing. With each technological advancement, the human resistance grew stronger, more coordinated, and more confident. The Virexians, finding their superior technology turned against them, were forced to adapt continuously, but human ingenuity kept them one step ahead. The science of survival, once a desperate bid to withstand the alien onslaught, had transformed into a sophisticated campaign to reclaim Earth. Jack knew that the road ahead would still be fraught with challenges, but with every victory, the end of the occupation seemed increasingly within reach. The war for Earth was far from over, but humanity was no longer fighting from the shadows. They were taking the battle to the Virexians, equipped with their own weapons and bolstered by their own science. With the successful integration of the gravity well technology and other advanced weaponry, the human resistance, led by Jack Turner, was poised for a critical series of operations aimed at breaking the Virexian sieges on key cities across the globe. The momentum from their recent victories fueled a sense of optimism among the resistance fighters, who were more organized and better equipped than ever before. Jack convened a strategic meeting in New Hope, now a stronghold for the resistance. The war room was alive with energy as representatives from various regions shared updates and coordinated plans for a synchronized strike. "Our next move is crucial," Jack stated, addressing the room. "We break their sieges, we liberate those cities, and we cut off their supply lines. It's ambitious, but with our new tech and the element of surprise, we have a real shot." Sarah, ever at the forefront of technological integration, briefed the group on the deployment of the gravity wells. "We've set up multiple units around the besieged cities. Once activated, they'll create a perimeter of high gravity, trapping the Virexians and giving our forces a clear advantage." Tom Briggs, leading one of the assault teams, added, "We've also got aerial drones for reconnaissance and to keep an eye on their movements. We won't be walking into traps this time." The plan was set, and the operation was launched simultaneously in several locations. In what was later known as the Night of the Falling Stars, the resistance moved swiftly under the cover of darkness, their movements obscured by a new kind of smokescreen technology that interfered with Virexian sensors. In the city of Crestview, under siege for months, the Virexian forces were caught completely off guard. As the gravity wells activated, the aliens found themselves pinned by the crushing weight of increased gravity. Human forces, wearing exosuits to protect themselves from the effects of the gravity wells, breached the city limits and engaged the enemy. Jack led one of the main assault groups. The fighting was intense, with energy blasts lighting up the night sky, but the well-coordinated human forces made significant headway. Block by block, they pushed the Virexians back, liberating key districts and rallying local survivors to join the fight. Meanwhile, similar scenes unfolded in other cities. The resistance had turned the tide of war, using the Virexians' reliance on technology against them. The sieges, once thought to be impregnable, crumbled under the innovative strategies of the human forces. After hours of fierce combat, the sun rose over a dramatically different landscape. Cities that had been under alien control were now flags of freedom, each victory inspiring more of the occupied territories to rise up. In the aftermath of the operations, Jack met with his commanders, tired but exhilarated. "This was a defining moment," he declared. "But we can't rest on our laurels. We need to prepare for their counterattacks and continue our momentum." The resistance moved quickly to fortify the newly liberated cities, turning them into bases of operation and centers for technological development. Sarah and her team worked on further enhancements of the gravity wells, making them more portable and easier to deploy. As the news of the broken sieges spread, more volunteers joined the resistance. The collective spirit of the human forces was stronger than ever, fueled by victory and the promise of reclaiming their planet. Jack, standing atop the ruins of a Virexian command center, looked out over the city, now bustling with activity. "They thought they could break us," he mused aloud, "but they only taught us how to fight back harder." With the sieges broken and cities liberated, the balance of power had shifted. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They were now the aggressors, taking the fight to the Virexians with a clear message: Earth was not going to surrender. The coordinated assaults that broke the sieges across Earth marked a turning point in humanity's war against the Virexians. Under Jack Turner's leadership, the human resistance had evolved into a formidable force, leveraging advanced alien technology and unyielding spirit to reclaim their planet, city by city. As the Virexian forces dwindled, their command structure fractured under the relentless pressure of human innovation and determination. In the final weeks of the conflict, the resistance prepared for what they hoped would be the decisive battle. Intelligence gathered by Sarah's team indicated that the Virexians were regrouping for a last stand at their primary command base, located in what was once a bustling metropolis, now a shadow of its former self under alien occupation. Jack surveyed the map laid out before him in the war room. "This is it," he said to his assembled team. "We take out their command, and we take back our planet. Everyone knows what they need to do. Let's finish this." The final assault was a masterful execution of all the tactics the Resistance had honed throughout the war. With aerial drones providing live feeds, the human forces advanced with precision. The gravity wells were deployed, creating zones of intense gravity that crippled the alien defenders, while squads and exosuits moved in swiftly, securing key positions and dismantling the alien defenses with surgical strikes. As the battle raged, Jack led a group directly into the heart of the Virexian base. The fighting was fierce, with close-quarters combat testing the mettle of every human soldier. But the resolve of the Resistance fighters never faltered. They had come too far and lost too much to back down now. Finally, after hours of intense combat, Jack and his team breached the command center, confronting the Virexian general. The alien leader, General Krall, was a formidable opponent, but he too recognized the inevitability of his defeat. Surrounded and outnumbered, he surrendered, signaling the end of Virexian resistance on Earth. The moment the news of the victory spread, celebrations erupted worldwide. From the ruins of devastated cities to small rural communities, people poured into the streets, embracing each other in joy and relief. The long night of alien occupation was over, and for the first time in years, humanity could look forward to a future free of fear and oppression. In the days that followed, Jack stood before a massive crowd in New Hope, the city that had become a symbol of human resilience and victory. "We stood together, united against a common enemy," he addressed the cheering crowd. "We showed them what it means to be human. Our planet, our home, is ours once again. But remember, this is not just a victory, it's a responsibility. We rebuild, not just our cities, but our bonds with each other. We move forward together." As the reconstruction began, the resistance transitioned into a provisional government. With Jack at the helm, efforts were focused on rebuilding the infrastructure and ensuring that the technologies developed during the war were used to enhance life on Earth rather than to dominate. Former resistance fighters were hailed as heroes and played key roles in the rebuilding efforts, bringing with them the strength and perseverance that had won the war. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged victorious, not only reclaiming their planet, but also their unity and purpose as a species. Jack, once a simple farmer turned resistance leader, watched as children played in the streets of New Hope, his heart full. The scars of war would remain, but they would serve as reminders of their strength and endurance, ensuring that no future generation would take peace for granted. As the sun set over a free Earth, Jack turned from the window and prepared for the next day. There would be challenges, but he faced them with a clear vision: a world united, resilient, and ready for whatever came next. The war was over, but the journey to rebuild was just beginning.